Hello, YouTubers. Joe Kersey here on May 7th, Wednesday, 2014. At around, actually just getting on toward 4 in the afternoon, Eastern Daylight Time. And as you can tell, I've been sitting out here, on the deck here. Look, I've got, I'm in my shorts, and indeed gym shorts, really, such as they are, and t-shirt, and the sun is magnificent, and I'm activating all my little squamous and pre-basal cell carcinomas here. There's another sort of set, not quite so bad on this arm as well. There's one on my lip. At some point, perhaps I'll have to have those attended to. This is actually could be a picture of my dad's arm just before he died. But he didn't die from these. He died because he had a stroke and a big heart attack. You can't beat genetics, can you? Well, you can try. I got a 6 out of 8 chance. Oh, excuse me. So, I've been basically just trivializing is not the right word. I have been carefully going through YouTube videos. I have not closely watched, let's put it that way, because I generally always completely watch any video I click on. And leaving comments, as I like to do. Well, that's courtesy, I think. And you watch a video, you leave a comment. Watch a video, leave a comment. If you're going to say something reasonable about it, unless it's really horrible, if you can't say something reasonable, then just go away. But most of these guys are, a lot of them are in their late teens and early 20s, and God bless them, they just haven't had much life experience, and so you allow for that. But some of them are very clever, and the ones that are nearing their late 20s and early 30s are some of them quite sophisticated as far as their video techniques and the topics they address and that sort of thing. So it's always good to catch up. Actually, I spent the bulk of my time this morning watching. Oh, by the way, I feel tremendously better today than I did yesterday. Thank the good Lord. I spent the bulk of my time this morning watching a fellow over in the UK named Chris Carr, who films farming videos. Well, he has been. Now, he said that today's video is the last video. I hope what he meant was today is the last video of the planting season. But I guess we shall see. And he films a lot of stuff over in the Fenlands and the flatlands there in East Anglia and in East Lincolnshire, the east of, off of the, I think it's called the Wash. Well, that's where that little bit of East Anglia sticks out, and then there's that north thing, and you go up through Lincoln and Nottingham, and a lot of this land actually at some point was drained, maybe upwards of several hundred years ago, but it's been drained land, and it's all sandy. It's this wonderful loamy sandy soil, and it's been farmed for well over 1,000 years, which means, of course, it is probably some of the richest land on earth, probably short of the wheat land in the Ukraine, which may be a reason why Russia really wants them. It's you know, it's magnificent soil, and so it breaks up so fine, and they can plant these things, and they plant these crops, you know, that have little tiny seeds. It's not like a corn seed, although they were doing some of that today, you know, which is fairly good sized seed. But they plant these beets and wheat and things, millet and barley. You know, this stuff basically you have a hard time seeing it, and they get this stuff down in this absolutely finely ground soil. It breaks up so easily, and it's so wonderful, and it's so much fun to watch these guys do this. Now, what struck me about this man's videos initially was here you are over in an area where sometimes the fields are moderately small. But yet these guys are using these huge pieces of equipment. Well, as it turns out, it took me a while to figure this out. You know, a lot of this stuff is done by custom, you know, what's called custom work. So the farmer hires somebody to come in, you know, with these hundreds of thousands of dollars of equipment and do this. That way he doesn't have the capital expense. He just, you know, he pays them. So if they get a return on their capital, whether the guy makes a, you know, good crop or not. And so it was an interesting glimpse into the economics of that kind of farming over there. Plus, it was an interesting thing to see how some things were planted. Now, a lot of seed drills are sort of the same kind of seed drills we use over here, or seed planters, if you will. But I had never seen potatoes planted. You know, now I'm sure if somebody in Idaho made a video, I'd have seen potatoes planted. Actually, come to think of it, about a year and a half ago, I saw a video from Idaho where they were planting potatoes. But the soil over there in Idaho is far more chunky and awful than it is over in Great Britain, in east, you know, the east of England. So it's been very interesting. Now I do hope this guy, you know, is just knocking off for the growing season rather than forever and ever, amen, because I learned a lot out of each of these things. Well, as you can see, I've been sitting out in the sun, and I addressed that, and that's, you know, I've been sitting out in the sun. So now I want to tell you a couple stories, as I always do. When I was an anesthesia resident, you know, we're now back into the land in 1976, 1977. This was at a time when people did not routinely reverse muscle relaxants before you took somebody to the recovery room. So, you know, the idea was that you'd have them sort of breathing on their own, but sort of like either with or without an endotracheal tube, and go away, fly. And you take them to the recovery room, and then over a course of a 40 minutes, half hour, 50 minutes, an hour, the muscle relaxant would wear off, and, you know, after they've struggled enough to breathe on their own, then they go upstairs. You know, at that time, there were a lot of people advocating that you reverse all muscle relaxants routinely, and there's various drugs you can use to do that. And I won't go into the pharmacology of that here, but it's relatively easy to do. But see, typically what we'd do is we'd take these folks down to the recovery room, we'd stick them on one of these pressure-activated ventilators, rather than a strict volume ventilator. I can't remember the actual name of it, but it was a pressure-activated ventilator rather than a volume ventilator. And volume ventilator was for very serious ventilation, fixed volumes at fixed rate. But this was just, you know, if somebody inhaled enough to trigger the thing that it gave them a breath. And they might be down there kind of flopping around, getting stronger and getting stronger and getting stronger. And I decided, this is really awful. I mean, people shouldn't have to flop around and feel like they can't breathe, And although they're being ventilated, they're breathing very adequately, but they don't feel like they are. See, and so I decided I was going to try to, start reversing my patients. The problem was, of course, that was not the way it was done at that time at Ohio State in that anesthesia group. Well, at least in most operating rooms. So as a resident, an MD, I got a lot more slack than the nurse anesthetist did. So what I'd do is I would collect the amount of drugs I thought I would need for any given day, and I'd stick them down in my socks. Now I used to wear big work boots. And I had these long work socks that came up to my knee, basically. And so I just stick the drugs down in my socks. That way they'd never be on my back stand. So when it came time to reverse the drug, the muscle relaxants, I just pull the needed drug out of my sock and crack it open and, do the job. Well, the nurses were just loving this because, these people would come in and they'd be breathing and they'd be strong and they wouldn't be flopping around like they're dying and gasping and all this. And I assume the patients loved it too, although they wouldn't have known the difference. They would have thought that's how it's supposed to be. So finally, God bless Dr. Welch, Merle. You've heard me talk about Merle before. He caught on and he just got the hugest kick out of it and laughed and laughed and laughed. He said, you gave the name of somebody else. I won't give the other guy's name. He says, don't let so-and-so see you. I said, okay. God bless Merle. Well, and that undoubtedly helped some people. I'll tell one more story. This is from when I worked at this hospital in Grant, in Central Ohio. This hospital in Central Ohio, with one of these sort of premier, photoporphyrin treatment laser guys for upper, esophageal and upper bronchial, and lung cancers, where you give them protoporphyrin and then you shine a red light down on it, and that would activate the protoporphyrin and it would kill the tumor, which is now very much a standard treatment. But he pioneered this, and one of the 2 or 3 pioneers, and he loved to smoke, but by that time you weren't allowed to smoke in a hospital. Whenever a case got tight, he'd always reach for his breast pocket because he was looking for his cigarettes. And of course, if you're in the operating room and you got a gown on, you can't get to your breast pocket and your cigarette. But after they outlawed smoking in the hospital, what he did was he brought in this old couch that he had found on the street, and he put it up there outside his operating room where he did all these endoscopy laser things. And he'd go down there and sit and smoke. So, we were getting ready to start the case. I was doing his anesthesia, and anesthesia for him isn't like in the strict sense of, shoot some drug in, put a tube in, ventilate them, they get cut on. It was, this was very much a cooperative enterprise between the anesthesiologist and the surgeon, and indeed the people in the operating room. You know, the guy operating the laser and the scrub nurse and all this. And so, you know, the scrub nurse or the circulating nurse had called down and said, you know, get Dr. So-and-so down here. And they said, yeah, he's coming. And so I waited and I waited and I waited and waited. She called again and she called again. Well, so after the third call, I thought, well, this'll get him down here fast. So I went ahead and put the bronchoscope in. It was a rigid scope. I'd always wanted to do a rigid bronchoscopy, and I got my chance to do that afternoon. And I said, you know, call that down there and tell him that I've got the bronchoscope in, and you know, I want to know how to do the laser. Well, he was down there in a flash. He was down there like almost instantaneously. But he didn't say anything because he knew he was completely wrong for being a goofball. But I got to put in this rigid bronch, which I'd always wanted to do. It's something I'd always wanted to do since I was a surgical intern. That was one of the last cases I ever did as an anesthesiologist. It was great. Now, that didn't have anything to do with being one of the last cases I did. It was just I was getting ready to, you know, get out of Dodge. Oh, it's so great. Well, I've got a couple other things written down here, but I'm not going to tell you this today. So bye-bye, YouTubers.